The pizza arrived steaming and cheesy. We devoured it in seconds, giggling and shoving each other playfully. Movie night and a sleepover at Sarah's new house. This was going to be epic. Her house was big and old with creaky floorboards and a musty smell. But that only added to the excitement. We popped popcorn, grabbed our sleeping bags, and piled onto the living room floor. The movie was a horror flick, our favorite. We screamed at the jump scares and laughed when the tension broke. Everything felt perfect. This was the best sleepover ever. Little did we know the real horror was just beginning, and it wasn't on the screen. The movie ended. We were all yawning, our eyelids heavy with sleep. Sarah's old house was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Suddenly, a scratching noise came from the attic above us. We all stopped breathing, our eyes wide with fear. The scratching got louder, more insistent, like claws on wood. "What was that?" whispered Emily, her voice trembling. "Probably just a raccoon," I said, trying to sound brave. But my heart was racing in my chest. The noise was getting louder, closer. Something was definitely up there, and it didn't sound like any raccoon I'd ever heard before. We huddled closer, our bodies tense with fear. The scratching stopped. Silence descended again, heavy and suffocating. Then we heard it. A whisper. It seemed to come from the walls themselves, soft and low. We couldn't make out the words, but it sounded mournful, filled with sadness and despair. "Did you hear that?" asked Michael, his eyes wide with terror. We all nodded, too scared to speak. The whisper came again, closer this time, winding its way through the old house like a cold draft. It was like the house itself was alive, and it was trying to tell us something. Curiosity mixed with fear gnawed at us. We had to know what was making those noises. What was whispering from the walls? "The attic," I said, my voice a shaky whisper. "We have to see what's up there." Sarah's face paled. "No way! My grandma told me never to go up there. She said it's dangerous." But her protests were in vain. We were too drawn in by the mystery, by the whispering walls and the scratching claws. We had to know the secret of Sarah's attic. As we crept up the creaking stairs, our hearts pounded in our chests. This was a terrible idea, we all knew it, but we couldn't turn back now. The attic was dark and dusty, a place long forgotten by time. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and mildew, a testament to the years of neglect. It was filled with old furniture and forgotten toys, relics of a bygone era. Each item seemed to tell a story, a whisper of the past that lingered in the shadows. Cobwebs hung from every corner, their delicate threads shimmering in the faint light. They were like the ghosts of spiders long gone, adding to the eerie atmosphere. The air was thick with the smell of decay, a pungent reminder of the attic's abandonment. It was as if the very walls were slowly crumbling into dust. We fumbled for the light switch, our hands trembling with anticipation and fear. The darkness seemed to press in on us, making every second feel like an eternity. Our breaths were shallow and quick, the sound of our own breathing echoing in the confined space. It was as if the attic itself was alive, breathing with us. Suddenly, the single bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered to life, casting a dim yellow light. The bulb's weak glow created long, eerie shadows that danced across the attic floor. These shadows seemed to move with a life of their own, twisting and turning in the corners of our vision. It was as if the darkness was trying to reclaim its territory. And that's when we saw her, a figure standing in the far corner, barely visible in the dim light. A young girl, no older than us, stood in the far corner. Her presence was both unsettling and sorrowful, as if she was a part of the attic itself. Her dress was torn and faded, a relic from another time. It hung loosely on her frail frame, swaying gently as if moved by an unseen breeze. Her face was pale and drawn with dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in years, her expression a mix of sadness and longing. She stared at us with hollow eyes, her lips moving silently. It was as if she was trying to tell us something, but no sound came out. We were frozen in terror, unable to move or speak. The fear was paralyzing, holding us in place as we watched her. Our minds raced with questions. Who was she? Why was she here? And what did she want from us? This was no ordinary girl. This was a ghost, a spirit trapped in this old haunted house, bound by some unfinished business or tragic fate, and she was trapped here in this old haunted house. Her presence was a reminder of the past, a ghostly echo that refused to fade away. As we stared at the ghostly apparition, a chill ran down my spine. The air grew colder and the room seemed to darken around us. It was as if the very essence of the house was reacting to our presence, warning us, or perhaps pleading with us to uncover its secrets. The whispering, the scratching, it all made sense now. These weren't just random noises, they were deliberate, desperate attempts to communicate. The whispers seemed to form words, and the scratching was almost rhythmic, like a code waiting to be deciphered. This girl, this ghost, was trying to tell us something, but what? Her presence was both haunting and sorrowful, a lingering echo of a life cut short. We could feel her pain, her longing for justice, and her need to be heard. Suddenly Sarah gasped and pointed to a dusty old trunk in the corner. It was almost hidden in the shadows, as if it had been deliberately placed there to be forgotten. But now, it seemed to call out to us, begging to be opened. It was open, and inside we saw a pile of old letters, yellowed with age. Each letter was a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of a story that had been buried for far too long. The letters seemed to pulse with a life of their own, as if they were eager to share their secrets. With trembling hands, I picked up a letter and began to read aloud. The words were faded, but the emotions they conveyed were still vivid. It was as if the writer's anguish and despair had seeped into the very paper, waiting for someone to finally understand. It was a heartbreaking tale of betrayal and murder. The letter spoke of love turned to hatred, trust shattered by deceit, and a life cruelly taken. The pain and sorrow in those words were almost too much to bear, but we knew we had to keep reading. The girl, her name was Abigail, had been killed in this very house 100 years ago. Her story was one of innocence lost, of dreams destroyed by a cruel twist of fate. The photograph of her, so young and full of life, made the tragedy even more poignant. The letters revealed a dark secret that had been hidden for a century. Each one added a new layer to the mystery, painting a picture of a time long past but not forgotten. The secrets they held were shocking, and we realized that uncovering them was the key to setting Abigail's spirit free. And Abigail's ghost was trapped here, unable to find peace until her story was told. Her spirit lingered, bound to the place of her untimely death, waiting for someone to finally listen, to understand, and to bring her the justice she so desperately sought. We knew then that it was our duty to tell her story, to give her the voice she had been denied for so long. As we finished reading the last letter, the attic door slammed shut with a deafening boom. We whirled around, our hearts pounding in our chests. The old wooden door wouldn't budge. We were trapped. The temperature plummeted, and an icy wind seemed to swirl around us. Abigail's ghostly figure flickered in the shadows, her eyes filled with a strange intensity. "We're trapped!" Emily shrieked, her voice high with panic. The air grew thick with dread. We were trapped in this haunted attic with the ghost of a murdered girl. And something told me we weren't going to escape unscathed. Panic threatened to consume us as we rattled the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. We were prisoners in this dusty attic with a restless spirit and a century-old secret. Then I noticed a small, boarded-up window at the back of the attic. It was a long shot, but it was our only hope. Working together, we tore away the rotting wood and pried open the window. The fresh air felt like a blessing as we squeezed through the opening one by one. But as we turned to help Sarah, the last one out, we heard a chilling whisper, "Stay." Abigail's ghostly hand reached out, her touch icy cold. With a desperate lunge, Michael pulled Sarah through the window, the cold night air hitting us like a wall. We could hear the creaking of the old house behind us, as if it were alive, groaning in protest at our escape. The moonlight barely illuminated our path, casting eerie shadows that seemed to reach out and grab at us, and we scrambled away from the haunted house, our hearts pounding in our chests. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent shivers down our spines. We didn't dare to slow down, the fear driving us forward, not daring to look back. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs ached, the adrenaline slowly giving way to exhaustion. The streets were empty, the silence only broken by our ragged breaths and the distant hoot of an owl. The memory of Abigail's ghostly face seared into our minds. Her eyes, hollow and sorrowful, seemed to follow us, a reminder of the horror we had just witnessed. The sleepover was supposed to be fun, filled with laughter and scary movies. We had gathered around the TV, popcorn in hand, ready to be spooked by fictional tales. Instead, we uncovered a chilling secret, face to face with a restless spirit. Abigail's story was not just a legend, it was a haunting reality. We left that night with more than just a terrifying story. We left with a piece of her sorrow, her unfinished business. We carried with us the weight of Abigail's tragedy, a burden that would haunt us for years to come. The once cheerful group of friends was now marked by a shared trauma, the haunting reminder that some secrets are better left buried. Even now, years later, the memory of that night lingers. The old house still stands, a silent witness to the events that transpired. I can still hear Abigail's whispers in the dead of night, her voice a soft, mournful echo that chills me to the bone. It's as if she's still reaching out, trying to tell her story, seeking closure. A haunting reminder of the dark side of sleepovers. What was meant to be a night of innocent fun turned into a lifelong nightmare, a story we would never forget.